Now, we didn't talk about the removal and where the bolt points were for the removal of the transmission, is because it took 4 hands to get that transmission down. But in order to bring the transmission down, we used a floor jack. We supported that right about here where the bottom of the transmission was. We supported that, and then again we put the bolts back in the appropriate holes to know how to put it back in. But as you can see, when you get ready to pull the transmission down, these are where the bolt points are. There's 2 on the bottom, there's 2 on the side, there's 1 on top, 1 on the side. Yeah, that's this one right here. And we have them over here. But you can see where I'm pointing, that as you're getting ready to pull the transmission down, if you haven't pulled one down before, you have quite a few bolts that need to be taken out before the transmission will come down. Now right here sits the torque converter. Now the torque converter has 1, 2, 3 bolts. Now those need to be loosened up before the transmission can be brought down. Now what they recommend is that you spin the flywheel, bring it to the where the starter is. Where that's on the starter? Where the starter hole is, right on the other side of that, you'll be able to visually see the bolt as it's spun around. So when you're spinning this flywheel around, this right here will end up in the window. You'll take the bolt out, but first they recommend that you mark it. That's why you'll know when you run it around where the first bolt hole is going to be at. Same with the second and to the third. So that's important that you remove those torque converter bolts off, or the transmission won't come out, because right here is where the spleen goes in, and that's important that you have that in there. Now as you're going to be remounting that, it's going to be the same sequence. You're going to bring it up with the torque converter on it. That spleen is going to fit into the hole, and you're going to align it to the point where the torque converter is going to be aligned, where you'll be able to run these holes through the starter to be able to put those bolts back in. So you're going to have your transmission up, aligned, but not attached until you get that torque converter bolts in. Once you get that in, you can use your guide pins. You have a guide pin here, and you have a guide pin over here to align your transmission back up to be able to get these bolts back in. And of course, as we put that transmission back in, we'll be able to show you that. We couldn't do that initially because it took 4 hands to get this transmission out. And
theoretically, now we know what we're doing. We'll show you when we put it back in.
yeah, so theoretically we know what we're doing because we followed Mr. Q3, which is questioning 3 procedure on how to disassemble and reassemble a transmission, which is a really good series on how to do that. So you may want to view that in order to figure out how to put that transmission, take it apart and put it back together. And that's it for now.